Okay, so the first thing that we want to do is we want to create a new project. So we'll call this COVID-19. And once we're in here, we would then head up to Tools and hit Online Search. And under PubMed, we could type in COVID-19 and we have about 667 references as of March 17th. So what we then can do is we then can import all of those references into the synthesis software. So right now it's retrieved like kind of all of the titles and abstracts, and then we then hit import into synthesis, and it then turns green, showing that all of these references have actually been imported. So once it actually comes in, what we then can do is we then can kind of expand like kind of the title or the journal or like things like that. And we can kind of actually just quickly like kind of see like kind of a word cloud, like kind of just showing from either the title or the abstracts what the keywords are. And one of the first things that we probably actually want to do is we want to head into project settings, and we want to basically show the PubMed meta data. So once we click that and click OK, and then we'll show like kind of other fields that PubMed has. And for this, we then can actually see like kind of the place that the journal was actually basically published. We then can as well see like kind of what is the type of what is the type of reference as well. So if we just click on one of those and we right click, we then can go view chart enhanced, and that will then come up with like kind of a high level chart, just basically showing like what is the breakdown. So if we then kind of actually click on like show values or show per sent images, we then can kind of see like how many of these are actually letters, how many of these are editorials, and then how many of these are basically considered a journal article. Now, one of the things that we may want to do as well is actually head into Tools and click on, and then click on the kind of derived meta and data. And what this does is it searches for certain keywords to like kind of provide us like kind of a context of like kind of whether the reference was like kind of actually reporting either countries or provinces. We'll click on basically study type, like what type of patients were actually in the title and the abstract, and then as well like kind of what the author country and author provinces. So like kind of once we actually click on OK, what happens now is it is actually creating columns with all of those fields with the data um, pulled in. And how this is actually like kind of not the same as the PubMed place is that the PubMed place will only show like kind of what is the country of origin for that public application, not like kind of actually what is the country that the actual reference is actually reporting on, or as well like kind of where is the author actually from. So right now you can kind of see it's actually heading through, and so right now it's like kind of processing the author country. It's kind of taking a while for like China because there's obviously a lot of references that are about basically China or from China. And so then once we actually have that, okay, and okay, it's still heading through. And so then now that we have that, we then have like kind of here are like kind of the basically countries. So if we actually basically click on this again and go view chart enhance, we then will actually see that from the papers you have about you have like kind of about half of the papers basically where they haven't actually written down a certain country. And then as well, you're seeing about 32 of the publications are actually from like basically China. We as well can actually show, turn off the null values so that you can get more of a breakdown. So then if we then basically return back, what we then can do is we can kind of click on basically study type, and then we can see like kind of like, oh, these are the papers that are actually basically systematically fuse, and then as we click on each one of these, we then can actually see like kind of what are these basically papers about. And the same thing for over here, what we can do is we can like kind of like, let's say there's like kind of so many papers that are actually talking about like kind of like women, and what we can do as well is we can kind of do topic clustering as well. So at that point it's then like kind of showing like kind of what are kind of the major topics essentially around all of the papers. But if we kind of only wanted to focus on like kind of on like kind of only basically preg on like kind of women who are pregnant, what we can do is we can kind of right click and go filter by this cell, and what that will do is that will add like, and then it will only filter out that and we like see that there's actually six references, and then we then can kind of actually see like kind of like what are like kind of the like what are like kind of the major topics that are kind of in there. The last thing that we can kind of actually basically do is if we wanted to actually create our own like kind of tags. So let's say we wanted to type in something like, I tried sepsis and there wasn't anything there. But if we type in basically ICU, we then at that point find out that there's like that there's like kind of nine like references that are like kind of making reference towards the intensive care. So what we can do is we can basically tag these rows, and we could create a new column. Let's call it ward, and under the value to match, if we go ICU and we click on OK, then we will see at the end that there is a new column there for ICU. So if we were to do the same thing with kind of the emergency department, so what we could do is we could kind of type in ID, but as you can see, or type in ED, as you can see, it's appearing under the journal. So if we go title, or if we go abstract, we then kind of actually see that there's like only two references that kind of make that like kind of have like kind of ed in like kind of the abstract. Now what we could do is we could actually just type in that, or go or abstract includes basically emergency department, and we're like still coming up with only basically add two there. So there's a lot more within the software as well. When you're basically finished, you can kind of actually export this as a CSV file, or you can export it as a RIS file that allows for your cite and write. As well, you have the primary, and you have the so you have the primary inclusion exclusion. So then that way you can actually exclude like kind of the articles that you don't actually want strictly by kind of heading in and going included, excluded. Um, and and then so then if you do that, what then happens is, so if we were to only filter on basically the JAMA, we then could kind of include um, some of these papers just by click on it. And then if we then hit download all papers, it then will then hit out and try to retrieve only the included um, references. So it takes about 20 seconds per paper, and it's about basically 70 to 80% successful, like kind of retrieving these. If it is unable to actually retrieve it, you then as well could like actually head in to like the you could then try to find it on the web. So if you do that, it then will actually basically launch your web browser, and it will take you to actually the paper. So then at that point, you then could look for it, and then you could basically download it. And as you download it, you then could then head back into the software and click on import from file and import it. And once you have those full text papers, you can actually use the search bar up here to search through all those full text papers as well. So up here, it has actually retrieved like kind of one of the papers, and it's still like kind of working on retrieving the othered ones as well. You can either use the PDF viewer from within the software, or else you can go launch external viewer, and that will launch any one you have as well. As well though, if you choose to highlight your papers or add any comments, you then could kind of just hit import highlighted text as well. You as well have the option to actually make other columns as well, like custom columns. So then that allows you to actually manually extract data. So if you wanted to like kind of include like what was the sample size or the prevalence that was reported in the paper, you then could head into project settings, and you could then add a custom column, and let's call this prevalence, and click on OK. And as we return, we then would actually basically see that there's a new column here that we could actually kind of start to record that. And finally, if you look, we have then basically from those like 3 papers that we included, it then was able to actually download all 3 of those. As I said before, you can kind of just head in and you can kind of click on download to actually exclude, or to you could click on download to only like kind of download that one paper. Again, the papers are really like really like kind of only accessible whether you actually have the rights to it. So it basically helps to actually log into your library's VPN and work with the software within there. So that's that's the first part of the literature review. Feel free to actually basically use it. Thank you. Bye.